Let's talk about saving and loading scenes in zStudio. We've got our scene here for landscape and portrait. We've designed everything. It's got a hierarchy. We've got this main play field that contains the symbols, and each of them contains an image, and each one of these has their positioning in the two orientations. We've got the text field and the buttons and so on. Now we want to save this. So there's actually 3 options to save in zStudio. The first is save. Let's save this. Let's create a new directory. Let's call it nice. And the name of the file is always going to be placements.json. This is not something that you should change because this is what zStudio is looking for. So let's save this file. And the export is complete. So let's take a look at what we have. So we're looking at my scene here. Let's open it up. You'll see that there's only a JSON file inside. It's composed of several areas. You've got your resolution, which is the resolution of the stage. You've got your animation tracks that we will deal with at another time. You've got all the elements that are currently on stage. These are instances that are on stage. For instance, we've got BG of type BG template. Similarly, we've got BG of type BG template. We've got its position in portrait and in landscape. Then every one of the assets, their positioning in portrait and in landscape. But there is no drill down here. So the nice thing about the way that zStudio saves out its data is that you've got the main play field of type play field template. Let's look at that back again. This, and inside of it, you've got all of these children. But these children are defined not on the instance of play field, but on the template itself, which brings us to our next section. We've got the template section. And here we've actually got the template definitions of each one of the templates. And you'll notice that if it contains an image or a 9-slice, you will get the relative position to the image's location on disk. So for playfield template, we've got the children, we've got the symbols that you saw on screen earlier, these guys. But each one of these is a template of its own. And so symbol 1 template would map to another template called symbol 1 template, which in turn holds an image with a relative location on disk. Now, what this means is that if you were to move your Studio folder into another directory, or if you were to move any of these images, this project would break, which is exactly why we have the second way of saving files. And let's do that now, which is save export images. So here, let's call this my scene 1. Okay, go. And now we're going to get an images directory, and they've all been copied from disk into here. Let's look at displacements JSON file. And you will notice that now all the images have a relative path pointing to the images directory because they've all been copied. Now your project is much, much safer. The last option we're going to cover is export atlas. This is going to create an atlas out of all of your images. Let's see that. Let's call it my scene 2. Let's go. And our output is now a texture atlas that was constructed when we exported. We've got a texture atlas JSON, and we've got the same placements that now will simply reference the atlas instead of a path on disk. It still gives it to you, the relative path in the regular export, but it will read it from the texture atlas at runtime. Now, a few videos ago, I showed you how we can test our scene. So testing our scene creates an atlas, which will always be saved inside of the documents folder. So let's see that here inside of zStudio test. This is the same as clicking on export atlas. right? It creates the export under Documents zStudio test and runs a web browser where you can see your final product. It's important to note that when loading in scenes from zStudio, you can load in all the exports. Each one of the options is going to be valid. Because the Texture Atlas version does contain references to the local files, you can always load any one of them and it will work.